Hey Meg, it's Sean.
How are you?
Overwhelmed as always.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad we got one of the jail things. Hopefully the other two will come quickly. That was the first one I did, and they had the easiest system for me to request it, more than the other two.
Yes, ma'am.
Hopefully we should have those other two. I'm hoping before Wednesday.
Yeah, they're kind of a ginormous pain in the butt.
Yeah. So we got one of the three, and then we'll get those. I don't know how that'll work. I'll probably, because I don't really want to take your social security number, and so I got to figure out how we're going to submit that so that you can keep your number safe and submit those things. I'll figure out if there's a way to do that with you over the phone, or we'll see how that works.
Well, I can just send it to you in a text message.
Okay, well, hold on to it in case I don't need it, just so it's not floating out there. But if that comes down to it, then maybe I can take it over the phone so it's not in writing anywhere, because I don't want anybody to get it, or then I could shred it. But so let's wait until I know exactly what they're going to ask from me. I haven't heard back from housing yet, but was that 2 weeks ago, Wednesday, or I think?
I think so. I'm not for sure.
I gotta 2 weeks ago Wednesday.
I gotta go check the mail here and see if they sent me anything. The thing is, I've been trying to get an advocate since before Natalie died, and they've been using the mentally ill tag as their excuse to do whatever they wanted. And that's something that, I mean, all of this legal issues that I have and everything that they did was over a crime that I didn't commit.
Yeah.
And they have.
Yeah. So I had asked before, I mean, only tell me what you want to tell me. I don't want you to feel like you have to overshare. So if I ever ask you a question, you're like, I don't really want to tell you that, that's totally fine.
I'm an open book.
But when you had mentioned about housing, one of the things that I want to make sure is hopefully we get you into one of those units and kind of get that settled. Are there things that you need help with or skills to build to be able to maintain a space of your own, or is that part okay?
There are skills that I need to learn and utilize. I need to be able to defend myself in court. So that's a good part of it. There's a lot of skills on a computer that I don't have that I'm going to need in order to be able to defend myself. And people keep telling me how to do stuff, telling me to do this and telling me to do that. But I literally need help in person with that. And I need someone who can actually get involved in my case and take a look at the evidence and help me to be able to send it out. Like the stuff that you were talking about, how the one that you got back already was the one that was the easiest. I mean, that's all stuff that I have to do that all over the place, and all of those government sites are just as complicated, if not more so.
Yeah. And I had to even though I work on a computer all day for my regular job, and I still had to call. Even though I was on the site, I still wasn't sure exactly what to do. So it wasn't, like a pretty straightforward click a button and you're done kind of thing anyway.
Yeah, it's even more complicated when you're trying to turn in officers, or when you're trying to turn in people that are harassing you or threatening your life or threatening your friends or family's lives.
Yeah. So when you talk about, when I think about what we're working on getting your income back through SSI and getting you a home of your own back, and bank account and some of those normal living situation kind of things. And then you're talking about additional things like court cases, and is that something that you're pursuing, suing somebody, or are you being brought into a court case?
I've literally gone through hell across the United States, so I need to be able to defend myself in all of those. But the thing is that all of those things that you're trying to help me with, the housing and my income, that's all stuff that I had up until Natalie was killed.
Right.
That's all the stuff that I needed to be able to defend myself. And without any of that, I haven't been able to defend myself. I've had to depend on alcoholics and people like that. There's a lot of things that if I had a safe, quiet environment, I could work on. And the thing is, I just haven't had it. And
Right.
so all the things that you're talking about all go along with the things that I'm talking about. All of the things that they were allowed to do to me across the United States never would have happened if I'd had a safe environment.
Right. Right. So when you talk about defending yourself, are there still legal issues coming at you that you need to defend? Or are you talking
Yes,
about
ma'am.
suing people?
Well, I really need to do both. I do need to sue them. I'm not after money. I mean, I would like the things that were taken from me back. But the thing is that as far as suing these people go, it needs to be something that I'm trying to change the laws so the things that happen to me don't happen to others. I should have had an advocate long before Natalie was killed. And, as far as suing people, if I'm going to sue them, it's going to be to get my things back, to get the money that was taken from me back, and to be able to take these people to court to be able to defend myself. I mean, I had to plead guilty in multiple court dates because I was literally being tortured by officers in the jails. And that's what happens with the kind of slander that I had to deal with. I mean, I had to deal with people accused me of killing someone I didn't kill and accused me of stalking somebody that I didn't stalk. And literally, after I left Virginia, I was just trying to get her and her family to call off the dogs. I was trying to get them to call off the people who were abusing me.
Right.
And the police didn't care. And I had been trying to get an advocate because of that. Because, I mean, I was having people stealing my money and getting away with it, and then, using the whole mentally ill tag to prevent me from, having an honest court date, to prevent me from. I mean, I was stuck in those crappy positions because I didn't have an advocate to stand up or stick up for me.
Right, right. So, I guess what I'm trying to figure out for immediate worries, I guess, is do you have any current court dates that you're being asked to attend to?
I have one on April 16th at 8 something in the morning here. So
and that's local?
That is local. But it's about a situation where I've literally been harassing a woman. I'm not going to pretend I haven't, but it's also because there's a lot of stuff that happened with my case, and these people told me they were going to help me and were going to advocate for me and so on and so forth, and they didn't. And there's a lot of stuff that the police got away with because they didn't come forward, they didn't keep their word. And that's the thing, is that I shouldn't have had to do any of that. All of this was allowed to happen because I didn't have an advocate. And the lady that I was harassing, she has evidence that the police did wrong stuff and intentionally prevented me from being able to be in contact with the people that I needed to. They really put me through the ringer, and I'm not going to pretend like I didn't harass her because I certainly did.
So she's bringing you to court?
Yep, and she's from Colorado, and part of the thing with that is that the Bollinger family, they made my life hell for a whole year before Natalie died. And then after she died, the Bollinger family and their friends and a lot of people who hated me over what the news had to say took part in gang stalking me, and the police wouldn't do anything about it. They actually took part in the gang stalking. And that's what you have to deal with when people accuse you of doing the fucked up shit that they accused me of doing.
Right.
And they kept on poking me with a stick and poking me with a stick and poking me with a stick. And when I poked them back, they're like, see, he's a terrible person.
Right.
Meanwhile, all of the laws that they tell me that they can't help me because of this loophole or because of that loophole, they literally, all of those things that they've been telling me that they can't do, they did for the volunteers and they did for the police.
Okay. So now, so this case in April is this lady who's saying, "Hey, he's harassing me. I'm taking him to court."
Yep, her name is Alyssa Rainwater.
And you're supposed to. You're going. What are they expecting out of you at this court date? Do you know?
I don't know. I do know that without an advocate, I'm not going to be able to defend myself, though. Without someone who is able to explain the situation and the mental issues that I'm going through because of this, it's I'm just going to get railroaded again. The fact is, I tried to do everything the legal way, and I literally did not break the law until there was no other option except to break the law.
So when you did break the law, that was when you harassed her, or
Yeah,
okay,
I've actually broken the law a lot. I had to try to get force the police to take a look at the harassment by the Bollingers and their friends and their families. And when the police were taking part in the threats, harassment, and assaults, that just made it 10 times worse. I tried to get a hold of the FBI; they wouldn't do anything, and I mean, it just turned into a big, ginormous mess.
so you have warrants that are not extraditable in Colorado.
Yes.
And then you have this court date, this current court case. Is there any other current open court cases?
Well, the thing is that they're using the court cases that they already closed out to prevent me from having an honest court date now. The police they did everything in their power to try to discredit me after Natalie was killed so that they could justify the terrible things that they did. And as a result, they're doing that now to this day. They're like, oh, well, this happened here and this happened here. I'm like, hey, you know what? That wasn't my fault and that was my decision. I should have had an advocate every step of the way. The court cases in Colorado, they're not extraditable, but they very likely could prevent me from getting housing. They could prevent me from getting my disability money back. And the thing is, if I'd have had my disability money to begin with, instead of them taking it from me as soon as Natalie died, like I'd have been able to do all this myself. I'd have been able to sit down and organize the things that I needed to organize and actually bring a case against these people instead of being abused from one side of the country to the other.
So I'm just trying to make sure I understand. So when I mentioned sue, that was probably the wrong word. So I'm trying to figure out what is coming at you in terms of other people pursuing you in court versus you trying to clear your name, I guess.
Well, that's the thing is that I'm dealing with both. I'm
So this lady that's bringing harassment charges against you, is that the only person that you got a court date with? Just that lady?
Currently, yes, but the thing is that all of these court dates prior and this one all tie in together. They all tie into the way that I was treated, the way that the mentally ill tag was used to prevent me from making a report, and also the jurisdictional BS. And this lady and her mother both have information about that needs to come out in court, which is the reason that I was harassing her to begin with.
So you were trying to get her to share what she knows, and she didn't want to share what she knew.
No, she did actually, but the police wouldn't take it. And I ultimately ended up before and the police just wouldn't have any part of it. Mandy Hughes and Alyssa Rainwater were trying to help me along with a few others, but they were just taking their dear sweet time. And unlike you, they don't have any understanding of autism. They don't understand the sensory overload. Like there's a lot of stuff that I've been talking about that I didn't have to tell you and you automatically understood. And with these people, they just didn't understand that. And so like I've been trying to get an autism advocate since before Natalie died, and trying to get an honest day in court so that I could prevent people from threatening me and harassing me and assaulting me, which it just didn't happen. So in August, I threatened the people who had threatened to kill me. I threatened them back. Um, they had court dates that were in counties and jurisdictions where none of this took place, but it was also with judges who had done wrong in the past and should have never had anything to do with the case. And I had been illegally prevented from filing charges against the police. I had been threatened, harassed, assaulted, arrested, escorted out of a courthouse. I mean, they did all sorts of messed up stuff to try to cover their own wrongdoing. And so in August of 2018, I threatened those people, and I literally went to Colorado to where Natalie was killed, and I was going to literally blow my head off. But I got lost on the way there because my phone died. So I went over to the people who had stolen all of my money. They took advantage of my disability, and they also stole all of my disability money. That was Ken Wilson and Leah Plunkett.
How did they do that? Did you have checks that they cashed, or how did they take it?
Well, when I got my checks, it was through a place called Ace Checking, and because I had hurt my back, and also because my vehicle was broken at the time, Ken was the one who had a running vehicle. So he promised, and also my leg was pretty screwed up, my foot actually. So he was going to basically take my money and spend it on the things that it needed to get spent on, but instead he spent it on himself and on his wife, mostly on like weed and drugs and things like that. And it was just a really screwed up situation. And I went over to my friend Kayla's house to try to get help with that. It's a big giant hornet's nest, and that's a lot of where the issue is that there was just so much involved, and like I have to try to remember it all, but I also can't function to do the things that I need to do. Like the guy that I'm staying with, he's not a bad dude, but he's constantly got noise going, and I can't function through that noise. And people think that they can abuse me into being able to function through that, and that doesn't work. He's not abusive, but that's the thing with the courts and the police, is that they didn't want to try to understand it. A lot of them have autism training. They understood exactly what they were doing, especially the ones in Colorado. But they took me to jail, and they railroaded me in court again because I didn't have an advocate, and they refused to take a report from any of the people who had tried. And I've got a lot of those phone calls between me and those people recorded. But after I got out of jail, like my public pretenders wouldn't do their jobs. They did everything in their power because it's a money making scheme, you know? So when I finally got out, I didn't have my disability money coming in, and it had all been spent before that going to all these court dates and being railroaded in all of them and having them pass it on and pass it on and pass it on. And I literally had to flee the state of Colorado in order to try to find a safe place where I could sit down and organize all this. I mean, literally, my disability money and my housing, which was taken away when Natalie died, that's literally what I have needed this entire time. Instead, I'm depending on addicts and, and I've got it recorded. A lot of these places that I was at, I recorded the situation, the constant screaming, the fact that a lot of those places they were selling drugs or they were alcoholics, and a lot of those people are mad at me because I recorded that stuff, but at the same time, like, how am I going to show the truth when people are so okay with lying?
So I guess this is another thing that I'm trying to process, is who I could talk to help you before this court date. So you're being brought up on charges of harassment, and so they're going to bring you in, and you're going to have a public defender or be by yourself.
Yep.
And so.
And neither of those are an okay option at this point. I mean, I cannot have a public pretender. They're not going to do their job.
Well, do you know, I know you've got screwed, and so I know it probably feels like nobody will ever do the right thing by you. I do know some public defenders are good people, and they don't mean to do bad, but I don't know in your area if there's very many. And so
there's not. They have to bring one in from elsewhere.
Okay, and so I wonder about there's a act in the state of Nebraska. So do you have to go to Colorado for April 16th or no?
I can't go to Colorado because those warrants. If I do, I'll end up in the same jails where I was assaulted. When you try to turn in a police officer and you're charged with assaulting a police officer.
So this court case in April, where is that being held then?
That'll be here in Chapel, Nebraska.
Even though the lady's from Colorado?
Yeah, well, see, that's the thing, is that because I live here, and this is where the supposed where the harassment supposedly came from, this is where the court has to be held, which is exactly the opposite of what I had to deal with in Colorado. In Colorado, they held court dates without me, in jurisdictions where none of this happened, but they were able to hold those court dates and win because I was not allowed to go to those court dates.
So this lady from Colorado is going to come to Chapel?
Yes.
Okay. So, and have they ever asked you for a diagnosis of autism or anything else?
They have, but with the constant moving and the lack of being able to have a mailbox, it's been impossible for me to get any of that. In addition to not having a paycheck, so I can't do any of the things that I need to do because all of this costs money, every bit of it.
Well, I learned a week or two ago about there's a certain Disability Act in Nebraska, and it has to do with something like this. So I'm going to do a little bit of research into that. And I believe that the state has to provide assessments for this so that can be used in legal matters. So let me look into that and see. And then it's not at the cost of the individual.
Well, the other thing is that when you're involved in a situation like this, you're looking at state-paid doctors who are going to do what the state wants. A lot of that's what I've been dealing with, is that the police, when I was trying to turn them in, they kept on pretending that I was trying to commit suicide. And obviously, if I'm going to the police, I'm not trying to commit suicide. I'm trying to make a police report. So, I mean, I've been institutionalized over a dozen times in the last 2 years over this.
Yeah. And so I do understand. I mean, as best I can, where you are, especially in the fact that you probably have, almost no faith in people, which, I don't blame you at all after being through what you've been through. But I also have to, in trying to help, I have to try to appeal to these people to do the right thing, and some people that I know will do the right thing. But I know you can't have faith in that right now because you got screwed.
The thing is, the lady who's taking me to court, her name's Alyssa Rainwater, and her mother were both trying to help me, but they were afraid of coming forward in public because they didn't want to be targeted by the Bollinger family. The Bollingers are not good people. They also didn't want to be targeted by the general public. And her mother, the lady who's taken me to court, her mother has actually seen Ted Bollinger in the grocery store on at least 2 occasions. She's scared shitless of the man. And I've got it recorded. That was in Colorado. Yep. But there's also, I've recorded phone calls with a lot of people that show that these people were trying to help me, but nobody would take their report. The police outright refused, and they kept on using the mentally ill tag or jurisdiction to prevent that. But then when it came to trying to frame me, they were able to use a bunch of stuff from a bunch of jurisdictions that didn't happen, and a bunch of slander from a bunch of my predators was allowed in court, and I was never allowed to speak.
So they still have the Bollingers finally let this go after this time, or are they still active?
The Bollingers, I'm still trying to get them in court. I have to get a court date with them because of the slander by the Bollingers, and all of this happened because of Bollinger's slander. None of this would have happened if the Bollingers hadn't slandered my name. So I have to be able to get them in court and get protection orders against them.
But are they actively right now today still doing and saying things to you, or?
No, they don't have to. They got to win in court by preventing me from going, and the police helped them to do that.
Right. So to them, I guess I'm just trying to gauge where they are. So to them, it's done.
Ted Bollinger is in prison in Kansas over a situation with his daughter. His daughter has drug court in Colorado, and I don't know what's happening with that. As far as all of this goes, they feel like they got away with the crimes that they committed. But the thing is that I saved the evidence. Do what?
Ted is the dad?
Ted is the dad, yeah. He raped his own daughters, and I have witnesses to that too.
Okay.
He also had them selling drugs at 13 years old, and he traded at least one of his daughters to pay off one of his drug debts. And he's also beaten them, as well as his ex-wives, who are scared shitless of him. Them and their friends, some of them were harassing me and threatening me, while some of the other ones were pretending like they were friendly with me. And then the ones who were pretending like they were being friendly with me, their friends were pulling a bunch of stuff for them. And basically, they conspired at every point in time to prevent me from being able to have an honest day in court. And that's because they had a lot to hide. I mean, the Bollingers are a bunch of drug dealers, drug addicts, and child molesters. Their family is just like mine.
So, in all the time in jail in Colorado, do you have any misdemeanors or felonies, or?
They only charged me with one felony. That was a felony assault against Officer Waylon Lolatai, and I sent you the video about him.
Yeah.
But they dropped the charges against me. The thing is that it's still, when police officers take a look at that, it's kind of like walking through Compton when you've been all over the news for using the N-word. I mean, it's just not going to turn out well. So when I deal with police officers, I've had to deal with that. When I was in the jails, I was assaulted repeatedly by officers, and I have statements that were written by myself and statements that were written by other inmates as well about the conduct of the officers in those jails. But because I don't have the money for a civil attorney, they got away with all of it.
Yeah. And so I guess I was thinking about when your criminal background checks come back for housing, so you don't have any true felonies on your record then?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I don't think that they will deny your housing then because they know you were in jail and they still took your application, and they still, that I don't think that was going to be a deal breaker for housing. That's my main worry, or at least my initial main worry right now, is to get you into a place. And so the housing, let's pretend just for a minute that it goes through and you get into a unit. Do they furnish those, or
no?
Do you just, okay, so you are looking at no furniture, no anything.
Right.
Okay, because that's another thing we gotta think about is how to get that going. So you had furniture in a house, and that just all went away when you went to jail.
Yeah, well, it all went away before I went to jail. When the people that I was staying with, Ken and Leah, when I went to Peach's house to try to get help getting a lawyer and starting a GoFundMe to help to get me a safe place. Um, when I was at her house, that's when Natalie was killed, and I did everything that I could to try to help, but people just wanted to assume the worst in me. I have so much evidence that shows that I was doing the right thing every step of the way. And there's been a lot of people that wanted to help. Like there's a woman named Ryan Ingersoll, and I can probably give you her number. Um, she was an alcoholic, and she's since quit. But I mean, it was just a really messed up situation. But she was trying to help me to get one of Natalie's stepmothers safe, and that's the thing is that these people were doing everything in their power to pretend that they were going to help me and pretend that they cared. But really, what they were trying to do, their friends were poking me with a stick and poking me with a stick. And what they were doing is trying to get their friends to do it so that they could wipe their hands clean and say, oh, well, we didn't do anything wrong. But the fact is, I have screenshots and pictures and recordings that show that all of these people did, in fact, work together. The problem is getting someone to look at it. And at this point, it's been over 2 years of this that, well, over 3 years of this that the police won't look at.
Okay. So I need to, I guess, to add to our kind of current to-do list, I'm gonna add that Nebraska Act. I'm also gonna call. I have a friend who is at the Disability Rights Council and see if they know of anything to do legally, or if they have advocates. I'll look into that too, so we can get ahead of that April court date. And then, if you were assigned a public defender, I wonder if I could talk to them.
Absolutely.
What's that?
Absolutely. The thing that they're not understanding is that I can't function well enough to take care of myself or defend myself in court.
Right. And so when would they assign a public defender to you? Do you know?
Well, since this is, I believe it's civil court, but I'm not sure. Because it's civil court, they might not assign one at all. I don't know. They railroaded me in Colorado because I didn't have the money for a civil lawyer, and I couldn't. With everything that they had me jumping through all these hoops for, I couldn't even stop and organize or collect evidence or any of that. I mean, it's just been jumping from one place to another until about 3 months ago. So
do you have a paper that shows anything about the court date and stuff?
I do. It's downstairs, but it says April 16th.
I wonder if you could take a picture of it with your phone and send it to me. Can you do that?
I certainly can. I'll do that as soon as we're off the phone. I can't take the picture and talk on it.
Sure.
So
why don't you, if you can, take a picture of it and send it to me. And then I'll call. It's probably too late today, but I'll call tomorrow to the guy I know at Disability Rights Nebraska and ask him. He's a lawyer too, but he's not. It's not his kind of law, but he would know maybe.
As far as this goes, it needs to be a federal case because of the multiple jurisdictions, both before and after Natalie's death. And that's just a big giant pain in the butt too. I've got over 100 phone calls recorded between me and the FBI where a lot of them just treat me completely like trash. As soon as I say that there was an issue with the police, they hang up, or as soon as I let them know that I was homeless, they hang up. or as soon as I let them know that the term mentally ill was used, they hang up, or they snap at me, or yell at me, or basically treat me like I'm an animal. So, I mean, a lot of the reason I needed an advocate was somebody who could sit with me and make those phone calls and, get them to actually do their jobs, to actually take it seriously. I mean, the gang stalking by the volunteers was, I've never even heard of people having to go through something this bad.
Yeah. So um, let me let me look at your current court date and then see. I guess I'm still a little bit confused as to whether or not this, like, I'm trying to make it so that I can understand it. And so, and I know it's very complicated, and it's 2 years, 3 years of a lot of different things and a lot of different agencies and police and everything else. I'm not trying to oversimplify it, or trivialize what you've gone through at all. I'm just trying to
Well,
get it simplified in my mind so that I can figure out our next steps.
I guess the best way for me to explain, I've been trying to do that, to write it all down as a timeline so that people can understand it.
Yeah.
But without the housing and without my income, I don't have the ability to do that. So by preventing me from having that, that's why they were able to get away with everything. And that's why I'm not able to do all of the things that they're asking. That I don't have that environment. A safe environment is the most important. That's first and foremost. Without that, I can't function.
Right.
And
which is where, but to me, when I prioritize kind of how to help, I think about that too. Is that okay? How can I help you get your SSI back, and how can I help you get into a home? Once we get those two things done, then are there other criminal issues that are gonna put you at risk for keeping those two things? And then we gotta attack that. So we don't want anything to get in the way of
well, that's the thing.
your SSI again or your house.
A lot of the stuff that they did to me, a lot of the crimes that they committed, and basically they tried to frame me every step of the way because I didn't have the ability to defend myself, and they kept on preventing me from defending myself. I might not be able to get my disability back or my housing back, and if I'm able to get those things back, then I do need to take all these people to court because my safety will always be at risk.
So you're currently being, that's the other thing is I'm trying to think of, most critical first, which
housing,
like we just said, the housing and your income. And then also keeping you out of trouble with the law so that neither one of those things are jeopardized again.
Well, if I have those things, then I won't have to break the law. I won't be getting in any more trouble. I didn't get into trouble with the law before this. And, they have a lot of stuff that they put on my record that shouldn't be there, but that doesn't detract from the fact that I stayed out of trouble before Natalie was killed. I stayed out of trouble. I was just a good person. I helped people and I took care of myself.
Yeah.
So if I'm able to get into housing, then I can deal with that. I will have warrants in Wyoming in July because and I have recordings with Rihanna as well as our text messages that show that what they did in court there was wrong. It was illegal and it was immoral. But I literally had to plead guilty in order to get a computer that's full of evidence of all of this stuff back. So they want $1,500 and they want that by July. I have no way to pay that. I have no way to function well enough to even get a job. My back is screwed and my head is screwed.
Yeah. So that's okay. So that's another thing that's coming later.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and so I guess it's those things that I'm worried about all of it, but once we get your housing and your SSI back, I want to make sure that we are taking care of or wrapping up anything that could risk anything else from getting in the way of that, because that's your new life, and your your steps forward instead of having to live in the past. And so,
Yes, ma'am. And that's a good point to be made. A lot of people, they're like, don't live in the past, don't live in the past. I'm like, that's the thing, is that past affects me, and it affects me today. So you get what I'm saying. Obviously, there's a lot of other people that they wanted to help, but they didn't understand that, whereas you seem to understand it without me even saying it.
Yeah. And so, let me make those calls, and then I'll keep in touch with you. Hopefully tomorrow I'll hear from the other two jails, because that's the only thing that's keeping us from the SSI. When we get the SSI, which I'm 99% sure we're going to get back, I just want to make sure that you can have that direct deposit into a bank. I don't want you to have your checks at risk or have you not have full control over your money. And so that's the other thing to think about, is how will that work so that you're not dependent on somebody else, because they'll just direct deposit that right into your checking account, and you can have a card or whatever so that you can buy food.
Yep. Well, I have to get an ID before I can do any of that too. My ID expired last October.
Okay. So
and that's also preventing me from a lot of the stuff that I need to get done.
Okay. So that's another thing we need to do. So I started thinking about it. I was like, okay, so you need your bank account. Do you even have a wallet anymore?
No, ma'am.
And so you need to get a few of those things back. And when you get your SSI, we'll have to get your Medicaid back so that you have insurance again, and get your banking straight so that you've got a card. We just want to make sure that you're independent and at less risk for being taken advantage of. And I think all those things are totally doable. We just have to, while we're waiting on one thing, we got to be working on another, I guess.
Yep.
I always tell my son that, like, even when you're doing jobs around the house, get something working for you while you're doing something else. And so it feels a little less torturous to wait when you're at least working on 2 or 3 other things. So I'll manage that, though, because I know that's difficult, especially without you having a quiet space. So I'll keep track of that, and figure out, I guess one of the things I get to try to figure out now is how you get your license back, get a new one, so that you've got that going.
There's a guy here in town. His name is Chris Stegeman. He said that I can use his vehicle to take my driver's test, but I'm going to need the money to be able to actually take the test.
How much is that?
I want to say it was $27 the last time I took it. I don't know what it is now. I can actually look it up. Let's see. Let's write this down. Dual County driver's license fee. It says $28 for a renewal.
Okay.
So I don't know if that'll be the same, because it won't be a renewal. I'll have to get it again.
Has it been gone more than a year?
Or
expired more than a year?
No.
You might not have to do the driving part yet, because I let mine expire once. I forgot, and then
33
because it was less than a
year. It looks like it's going to be $28. Okay. It might be up to $33. It says.
Okay. So I'll because once we get your SSI and your Medicaid, we need to try to get your food stamps too.
Yes, ma'am.
I have to run to get my boss's right to send me an email that I need to get on another call with her. But I will write down the things that we talked about today and kind of what I need to do.
You see how complicated it is, just the parts I've been trying to explain. I mean, it's obviously it's this is something that needs to be taken to the Supreme Court. I mean, that's at the point that it's gotten to now.
Yeah, and that, I think part of that, I understand what you're saying. Part of that makes it probably feel even more overwhelming and impossible. And so, if I can get you to try, and I know this is really, really, really hard, to try to focus on, you know what, I'm going to help myself today. And the way I'm going to help myself is to just work with Megan to get these basic things back. And this other big stuff will come. You know, if you can, and I know that's nearly impossible to shove that out of your brain, especially when you're dealing with anxiety and depression. And, you know, those things tend to be in the front of our brains all the time, especially at night. And I know it's hard to focus on that, but
see, more stuff I didn't have to explain to you.
Yeah, so if you can try to, when that stuff creeps in, you're thinking about the Supreme Court suing people and clearing your name, and if you can try to take 10 deep breaths and say, you know what, I'm on the road. Megan's going to help me. I'm on the road. I'm going to get my basic stuff back, and then I'm going to worry about that another day.
All right, I do want to say that a lot of the people that I need to take to court, and a lot of the people well, we'll just use Alyssa Rainwater as an example. These are actually good people. They were trying to help me, but they were afraid of the police and afraid of the Bollingers, and that's where this whole situation came out. Is that they were too afraid to come out in public, and when I came out in public, when it was too late to do any good, you know, they were afraid of being targeted, and that's where this is all coming from. Is that they're afraid of the Bollingers, same as me.
Yeah. And so hopefully we'll be able to turn a lot of it around and you know, clear your mind some, and it's just going to be not an easy process, but it's going to happen.
Yes, ma'am. Housing first.
Yep. And so I will talk to you probably tomorrow. I'll for sure text. I don't know what my work day is like tomorrow, but I'll figure that out and I'll let you know.
Yes, ma'am. And thank you.
You're welcome. You have a good day. I'll talk to you soon.
Yes, ma'am. Bye. See, that's something that people didn't understand. She understands. Riley Johnson. He's doing all right. See, there's a big difference between people out for blood and people who actually understand, or people who want to help but don't understand and end up doing more harm than good. People who just make assumptions based on their level of understanding, but don't make any attempt to understand from my level. Whereas this lady, she's an autism advocate, and there's so much shit that I don't have to explain to her. Oh yeah, and fuck you again, Hobo Hunter. You're a fucking piece of shit. There are a lot of good people who are homeless, and most of them are better people than you. Even the addicts. Natalie Bollinger was a drug addict. She wasn't homeless, but she was a drug addict, and she was good to me. In real life where it mattered. And it was the things that she didn't understand, and the things that her abusive, shitty fucking family wanted to put her through that ultimately resulted in all of this happening. Fuck the Bollinger family. May they roast in hell.